know them as heroes. Fighters against oppression, discrimination, and injustice. They led the masses and championed their causes. They are the national heroes of Jamaica. And this is the story of two boys. One rebellious, the other restless. And their journey to become the Right Excellent Norman Washington Manley and the Right Excellent Sir Alexander Bustamante. National Heroes. Manley and Bustamante remain symbols of the battles fought and won in the making of modern Jamaica. Yet, some of the hardest battles they fought and the challenges they faced came at the beginning of their journey, when they were just boys. Both Manley and Bustamante were born at a time when the society was racially divided and racial discrimination was the order of the day. Bustamante's father, the son of a white man and a colored woman, married a colored peasant woman and took her to the family home.
His mother would not allow them to live in the great house at Blenheim, and Bustamante was actually born in a little thatched cottage further removed from the great house.
The thatched cottage was the standard house of the enslaved. And it was here, on February 24, 1884, that William Alexander Clark was born to Robert Jr. and Mary Clark. As a boy, he was known to everyone in the community as Alec. 9 years later, on July 4, 1893, Alec's cousin Norman Washington Manley was born at Roxborough in the parish of Manchester. His mother, Margaret Shearer, passed for white, and his father, Thomas Manley, was a colored man. Although Thomas Manley was a wealthy businessman and the owner of Roxborough Estate, Margaret Manley's white friends socially excluded her from marrying a colored man.
Plantation slavery created a notoriously racist society in Jamaica that legally differentiated whites from coloreds and blacks. The Assembly passed a statute in 1711 which says that all persons descended from a Negro who are not 3 degrees removed must be excluded from the franchise or from public office. That was a law.
After the death of his grandmother, Alec's family moved into the great house and his father took control of the property. However, the taste of privilege did not last long, as the property became unprofitable and Alec's father had no choice but to give it up. By age 12, Alec and his family had to move again. This time to the neighboring community of Cacoon, where Alec attended the Cacoon Elementary School until he was 15. There, the headmaster was William James, the grandfather of Jamaica's 6th Prime Minister, Percival James Patterson. At 15, Alec now faced an uncertain future. His family no longer owned any property, and there were not many opportunities for a young boy to work. To make matters worse, his parents left Cacoon to live in Kingston.
He's virtually on his own to make a living. skill he has developed is breaking in horses and mules, and he does that for people in his community.
He did what he was good at, but he wanted more. As Alex struggled to earn his keep, Norman's life of comfort was also crumbling. His father died when he was 6 years of age, leaving the family bankrupt and the Roxborough estate up for sale. Overnight, Norman's life was shipwrecked, and his mother struggled to stay afloat and provide for her 4 children.
Manley's mother left her 4 children with her sister and went to the United States to seek employment. She got employment in a post office. After a year, she came back to Jamaica.
The family moved to Raytown in Kingston. She enrolled the children at Wolmer's, but after a year, the money ran out, and Norman's mother moved to the family property Belmont in Guanaboa Vale, St. Catherine. Belmont had become derelict and was no bed of roses.
And she went there with a blind father, an invalid sister, and her 4 children.
To make ends meet, Norman's mother ran the postal agency and sold preserves. It was in this challenging environment that Norman's strength of character, his devotion to hard work, and his indomitable spirit were shaped.
They were a very poor family, and he used to earn his own pocket money to go to school by working as a worker on his own farm. You know, no business about being brought up as any rich boy. They had it tough, and he learned to live the hard, tough way like a worker would live. And this quality stayed with him all his life.
As soon as the family income improved, Norman's 2 elder sisters went off to Hampton. But for Norman, all that could be afforded was the Guanaboa Vale Elementary School. A year later, he was able to enroll at Beckford and Smith's, which is now St. Jago High. And it is at this stage of his life that the young rebel emerged.
Growing up without a father had its own consequences with him. He became quite unruly as a youngster.
Alec, now 20, arrived at Norman's family property in Guanaboa Vale to take up the job as a junior overseer. About a year later, Alec was off to Cuba in search of fortune and adventure. There, he worked as a special constable and a traffic inspector, and later transferred to Panama, where he met his first wife. They got married in Jamaica in 1910. Then, it was back to Panama. At 13 years, Norman won a half scholarship to the prestigious boarding school, Jamaica College. Here, the students had a tradition of bullying newcomers.
Norman fancied himself a strong young boy, having done the work of a man, and is not about to allow himself to be bullied. So he systematically beat, first of all, the leading bully in the school, and then organized a group to beat all the other bullies that were there. Within a year, I brought an end to that. And they say he still holds a record at Jamaica College. He's the only student to have been reported by all 7 masters to the headmaster in the same day.
Up to the age of 16, I did no work at all in school. Practically no work.
Norman was on the road to failure at Jamaica College. It was the death of his mother in 1909 that brought a turnaround in the life of 17-year-old Norman. Remembering the sacrifices she had made for him, he chose to channel his energy in a positive direction. A changed Norman now became promoter of discipline and a student leader, to the amazement of both his fellow students and schoolmasters. Mentorship played a crucial role in his transformation.
Two people who influenced me most, and probably most in my life, were my own headmaster, Archdeacon Simmons, who was a most remarkable man. Remarkable because he was a perfectionist, remarkable because he was an encyclopedic, remarkable for his austerity, and remarkable for a peculiar habit he had of interfering as little as possible with the relationship between junior masters and boys. For serious offenses, a master had to report you to him. And you denied what was charged, he always accepted your word. And the influence of the fact that it didn't matter what you said to him, he would say, well, it's hard to believe, but if you say so, I believe you. Go. He had a fantastic influence on boys. The other man that I suppose I owe everything to was Reggie Murray, who afterwards became headmaster.
Norman now pursued academics and sports with the same drive and determination he had demonstrated as a rebel. His goal was to win the Rhodes Scholarship, a most prestigious award given to students of academic excellence and outstanding sportsmanship. Over the next few years, Norman became Jamaica College's leading athlete.
Was the most outstanding sprinter in Jamaica for some time. His time in the 220 yards in 1911 would have earned him a place in the finals of the 1912 Olympics. He was that good.
His athletic excellence extended to almost every sport at the school. The track and field, football, and cricket teams were all captained by Norman Manley. Then, on February 3, 1913, came the announcement that Norman had won the Rhodes Scholarship and would proceed to Oxford University in England. His hard work had paid off in full.
The announcement was in April, and in May came down with typhoid. He's taken to Nuttall Hospital and virtually left to die. His weight drops from 175 to 90. But he recovers in time to go to Britain to take up a Rhodes Scholarship.
In England, he met up with the rest of his siblings and cousins. One of his cousins was Edna Swithenbank. She caught his eye immediately, but he had to focus. At Oxford, most of the students had enlisted for World War I, and Norman and his brother Roy also enlisted. Roy was killed during the war, but Norman made it through and won a medal for bravery. He completed his studies at Oxford, gaining first-class honors, and then completed his bar finals. On June 25, 1921, he married his cousin Edna. In 1922, he returned with wife and son to Jamaica. That same year, Alec visited Jamaica.
And I was sitting there with my wife one afternoon, and who should come in but Alexander Clark, fresh from Cuba. It's such a Cuban dandy, you never saw anything like it in your life. Flawlessly dressed, handkerchief matched his tie, matched his socks. Hair was pomaded. He was the Spanish grandee to the life.
3 months later, a restless Alec left for Cuba again. Meanwhile, Norman's pursuit of excellence quickly earned him the position of leader of the Jamaican bar. And at the peak of his professional success, he sought to find a meaningful purpose to his existence, and soon shifted the focus from himself to the needs of his fellow man. Norman's rural upbringing, his sporting brilliance, and scholarly excellence as a boy inspired his direction as a man. He helped the banana growers establish the Jamaica Banana Producers Association in 1926, and he formed Jamaica Welfare Limited in 1937. The success we now enjoy on the global sporting stage began with Norman Manley forming the Jamaica Boxing Board of Control, the Jamaica Amateur Athletic Association, and the Jamaica Olympic Association. Norman Manley's success in transforming his own life, together with his pursuit of excellence, made him a role model for the young.
He loved young people. The students would come over from the house next door and he would have long talks with them, and he was always fascinated to hear them complain or quarrel or criticize, because he felt that this was the privilege of youth and this was what would help people to be aware of what was going on around them.
Back in Cuba, Alec was still on his journey of self-discovery. He changed his name from Alexander Clark to Alejandro Bustamante. Then he was off to New York, where he worked as a dietitian in a hospital. Then it was back to Jamaica in 1928, where he operated a milk business on Malines Road. He soon left for the USA again. In 1934, he returned to Jamaica for good.
When he returned to Jamaica in the early 1930s, most of his early life had been spent abroad. One of the advantages of that is that he was able to gather a tremendous amount of experience of what life was like in other countries.
He left as Alexander Clark, he arrived as Alexander Bustamante. Nobody knows him. In 4 years, he's the most talked about man in Jamaica. Now that's a hell of a miracle.
He started writing letters to the press, introducing himself as a lonely fighter who fights on the side of fair play, without fear or any consequence whatever, and taking up issues which affected ordinary Jamaicans.
He started writing letters about the condition of the people, what should be done. He wrote letters to the British Parliament. When they're trying to find out who it is that informed the British Parliament, he writes another letter to the local newspaper. He said, you don't have to look any further. This is I'm the man writing those letters.
He would make commentaries on current issues, and particularly those issues that affected the workers, and that's what really brought him to prominence.
It was because of this devotion and deep dedication to the workers' cause.
At the age of 50, Bustamante found his mission for the rest of his life. He was no more a wanderer, but a public defender of the poor, weak, and defenseless.
Then every Sunday night, they used to have a little public meeting right near War Theatre downtown. They call Lemon Corner. And St. William Grant was a Garveyite. He was the man holding those meetings. Till one Sunday night he introduced Bustamante to talk, and Bustamante became a regular at that meeting.
The swashbuckling youth that tamed horses and toured countries was now the swashbuckling man who won the hearts of the people and led them as chief.
Chief, 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 chief.
He was very charismatic, very persuasive, and when he stepped forward, the workers felt that they had a champion.
The situation in Jamaica had reached feverish levels. People were frustrated with the lack of care and poor treatment dished out to them.
There was little access or no access to education beyond elementary school. Little or no access to public health. Landless and wages are deprived. These are the basic conditions that led to the 1938 rebellion.
As history would have it, the two country boys who struggled to find themselves in life were now called to leadership. Bustamante's fight for justice was a commitment to which he was willing to give his life. On May 23, 1938, at the peak of the riots, a squad of police officers swooped down on a crowd as Bustamante addressed them and ordered the people to disperse or be shot. Bustamante bared his chest like a superhero and dared the squad to shoot him. "If you're going to shoot, shoot me and leave these defenseless, hungry people alone."
While Bustamante was building a reputation as a champion of the people, Norman Manley was also building a reputation as a legal defender.
I well remember the day they started. Within 2 hours, every single group of workers in the principal city, Kingston, were out on strike. And I wondered what was going to happen. And that night I made up my mind. And I put an advertisement in the leading newspaper of Jamaica that I would represent all the striking groups in the country. And I got up next morning and life began on a new plane.
Manley and Bustamante sought to organize the labor movement in a legal way, but people were so incensed, they rioted and many died. Still, fundamental achievements were brought forth for the people. Jamaica's first minimum wage law came into effect in 1938. The cousins knew that order was the way to go, and so Manley formed the People's National Party on September 18, 1938, and Bustamante formed the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union on January 19, 1939. The members of the security forces kept a very close eye on Bustamante and the workers, and after Bustamante called 3 major strikes in less than a year, he was detained in 1940.
Bustamante was imprisoned at a park camp for over a year because he was seen by the colonial government as being, too dangerous when he was not. As a matter of fact, even when he was in detention, he would send instructions to the workers whenever they were getting restless and about to create mayhem. He would send instructions to them, "No, hold on, cool it. I'm here, but I'm still alive, and I'll be back out."
He was never a promoter of violence, and I think he would be disappointed in the trend in terms of violence in our culture today. He was a man at all times seek to have the best solutions to problems, not through violent means, but through dialogue.
About a year after his release from detention, Bustamante formed the Jamaica Labour Party on July 8, 1943. Alexander Bustamante and Norman Manley committed themselves even more fully to the building of a new and better Jamaica. Norman Manley and the PNP launched the struggle for a new constitution.
Norman Manley was convinced that the Jamaican people need to be a part of Jamaica's development. And the most fundamental role they could play was as voters in electing the government that would represent them. They would be active participants in the political process. And from day one, his demand was for a constitution, a new constitution, that would grant universal adult suffrage.
The Constitution came into effect on November 20, 1944, celebrating universal adult suffrage. Now anyone over the age of 21 could vote.
Previously, in order to have the right to vote, you had to own land. And you had to have a title for the land. And you show the title and you say, well, all right, I'm entitled to vote. That was changed after the Moyne Commission. And we had our first universal adult suffrage election in 1944.
The first general elections held under universal adult suffrage was on December 14, 1944. It was Bustamante's Jamaica Labour Party, which he had launched in 1943, that was victorious.
The momentum that Bustamante had built was so strong, so powerful that he won handsomely.
And he won again in the 1949 elections. Manley took his seat as leader of the opposition.
Even though Bustamante won, in terms of winning the majority of the seats, Norman Manley and the People's National Party won a majority of the votes.
All of us can now concede that universal adult suffrage was a major gain for the Jamaican people and a major advance. Britain only had universal adult suffrage in 1928. And Jamaica has made a tremendous success of parliamentary democracy.
Both men worked together to give Jamaica between 1949 and 1959 a decade of unprecedented economic progress.
So, Alexander, how high is the standard of living for the ordinary people of Jamaica?
No one really knows, but it's fully 200% higher today than it was, say, 10 years ago.
What's caused that increase?
Chiefly through the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union, of which I'm the president.
Does that mean a lot of strikes you've had to get this?
Oh, we had many strikes, night and day strikes.
The leadership and influence of Norman Manley and Alexander Bustamante brought forth the final stage in the building of modern Jamaica. Independence from Britain. On August 6, 1962, Jamaicans from all walks of life formally celebrated the birth of an independent nation. A month later, on September 7, 1962, Bustamante celebrated another milestone. He married his secretary and friend, Gladys Longbridge. She was the anchor that kept him grounded and the wind in his sails that steered him to becoming a successful public figure. As Bustamante would later convey, I owe all my success to her.
In Norman Manley's and Bustamante's time, the racism in the society was a reality. And it is to their credit that whereas they could have associated with the white ruling class and benefit from it, they devoted their entire lives to working with and helping those who had been left behind and most discriminated against racially and economically.
We must never forget the value that they brought to us as a people, as a nation, and we must never forget the vision that they had, whether it was for workers to be recognized and treated with respect, or for ordinary people to have opportunity to live a good quality life. These are sources of inspiration, and we have a duty to do everything that we can in our own way and during our own time to actualize those dreams and those aspirations.
So both Norman Manley and Bustamante, at age 15, like Marcus Garvey, would fall into the category of youths at risk. And both succeeded in turning their lives around and developing some focus in their middle years.
The two of them are sort of critical pillars of Jamaica's emergence as a nation and our development. But I'm glad that we had the benefit and privilege of having both of them.
On October 20, 1969, Alexander Bustamante and Norman Washington Manley were awarded the Orders of National Hero.